Hi, and welcome to this introduction to the FabFilter Pro-C compressor. Compression is one of the most important processes in modern music production, but it is also one of the hardest to understand as a newcomer. Pro-C comes with a wide range of factory presets, but it is important to remember that compression depends on the level and dynamics of the incoming signal as well as the compressor's settings, so you will get much better results if you understand how to adjust a preset to suit the signal you're processing. A compressor is at heart nothing more than an automatic volume control. It continually monitors the input signal level and turns down the level when it rises above the threshold. This one is currently processing the whole mix. The graph at bottom left shows input level along the x-axis and output level on the y-axis. The red area indicates the incoming audio level, while the white line represents the transfer function of the compressor. This starts off rising at a 45-degree angle, indicating that the input and output levels are the same and no compression is taking place. When it reaches the threshold level, the graph angles down to show that the output level is now increasing more slowly than the input level. The angle of the knee is set by the ratio knob. This is a hard knee setting, but we can switch it to a soft knee using the switch at the top if we want a gentler transition. Now let's take a look at the middle graph. This is actually displaying three things at once, but you can adjust the opacity of each graph using the knobs at the bottom. Let's turn the out knob all the way down. Now we just have a grey input level graph and a red line at the top for gain reduction. Notice that the dips in the gain reduction graph correspond to the peaks in the input level. Let's turn the out knob back up. Now we see our output levels superimposed on top of our input levels, so we can see that output levels are lower for just the peaks. In other words, we have reduced the dynamic range. We can see this more clearly if we switch the graph scale to 24 dB. So let's turn up the output level knob to compensate for the gain reduction. Now our peaks are back to roughly their original level, but the bits in between are louder than they were. So we have now increased the average signal level. So what about the attack and release controls? At the moment they are set to their minimum, so peaks are squashed almost instantly, and the gain rides back up to unity very quickly in between. So let's turn the release knob all the way up. Now we see a much slower recovery after each peak, and the compressor never has a chance to get back to unity at all. This gives us a basic rule of compression. Faster release times give higher average signal levels. Fast release times can cause distortion on low frequency signals, however, in which case try a slower setting. As you get to medium release times, you may start to hear audible pumping. Actually, this isn't always a bad thing. Deliberately setting the release so that the gain pumps in time with the beat can be a good way to enhance the groove of a drum track or a loop. Use your ears and the gain reduction meters to judge this, rather than going by the release time readout. Pro-C's compression algorithms are all program dependent, so the actual attack and release values will change depending on the signal you are processing. This might be a good time to point out the style options at the top. The clean setting is like a high-quality modern VCA type compressor. Classic and Opto are both based on more vintage designs, and all three have different amounts and types of program dependency, and will pump in different ways when you push them hard. They also have different types of soft knee. If we turn on auto release, we can add an extra layer of program dependency. Pro-C will now automatically set the release time to suit the incoming signal, which can be useful when processing complex material which changes too much to have one ideal setting. But we can still make the overall release faster or slower. Okay, so now let's turn the attack time all the way up. And notice that our gain reduction graph is now hardly moving. Our attack time is so slow that the compressor is barely responding to the peaks at all. So let's turn it back down to about 30 milliseconds. Our gain reduction has reappeared, but it is still not quite as much as when our attack time was set to the minimum. Pro-C provides an easy way for us to compare. The AB button at the top toggles between two different settings. So if I copy our current settings and then turn down the attack time again, I can switch between them. So listen carefully to the kick and snare hits with the fastest attack time. Now hear the difference when I switch back again. They sound punchier because their initial transients are squeezing through before the compressor has a chance to react. I can therefore use the attack time to shape the initial transients of my drum tracks. But longer attack times sacrifice some of the control we had over peak levels, so I will need to adjust the output level accordingly. Output gain is something you will need to keep adjusting as you refine the other settings. The auto gain option in Pro-C will make an intelligent guess at suitable gain settings, but you may still need to make adjustments. It's good practice to set it so that bypassing the compression doesn't cause a big jump in volume, otherwise it's impossible to tell if you are making things better or worse. Let's have a different example. Here we have a gentle female vocal part, so I'm going to stick with the soft knee setting, and I'm also going to increase the attack time to allow some of the consonants to squeeze past. This can help to make a vocal part sound more intimate. But I would probably need a faster setting for a more aggressive singer. I don't want the vocal to sound too obviously hyped, so I'll increase the release time a little. Now I can balance the threshold and the ratio controls to keep the loud sections under control. Is it the wind that falters on my weary heart? I just don't know anymore. Try to avoid the temptation to solo the channel. The microdynamics of a part will affect how it fits with other elements of the mix, so it's a good idea to set the compressor in context. Another common use for compression is to process a whole mix or a submix in order to help the different elements fit together better. This is often referred to as gluing together a mix. In this case, you might want to try setting a lower threshold and using low ratio settings to gently ride the dynamics. You might want to try more relaxed attack times to avoid choking or dulling transients. And experiment with different release times to control the glue effect. The clean style is a good choice for this, as setting a high attack time automatically reduces the minimum release. I'm going to hit copy now and try out an alternative approach known as parallel compression. I'll stick with a low threshold, but set the ratio quite a bit higher so we get a decent amount of gain reduction going. I'm also going to set a fast, snappy attack time and a moderately fast release. Now I'm going to turn off the auto gain option, but instead of turning the output level up manually, I'm instead going to turn up the dry level almost to unity to mix in the uncompressed signal as well. We can now control the compression effect by adjusting the output level up. -12 dB will give quite a subtle compression effect, while unity or higher will be much more obvious. This is a very good way to transparently reduce the dynamic range, and is often used in classical or acoustic recording. But it can also be used to fatten up drum tracks, or to make them punchier by using a slower attack time. In this context, the technique is sometimes known as New York compression. That's all we have time for in this introductory tutorial, but you can get more help from the help menu in the top corner. And if you turn on interactive help hints, you can hover over any controls to get a pop-up description. Thanks for watching, and look out for the next video, which will cover MIDI Learn and the extra options available in expert mode.